everybody, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri. As always, joined by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you doing today?
I'm good, Andy. I'm good. I just recently finished Samus Returns. I'm getting into Metroid Prime, which I'm very excited to do because we're going to be digging into Phendrana Drips eventually. So that's going to be hype.
Next week?
Yeah, exactly. And still playing a lot of Valorant. The quarantine lockdown continues. I think it's like week 9 or 10 or something. It's crazy how long it's been going on for. But yeah, I'm doing good, all things considered.
That is excellent to hear. Are you playing just Prime or the Prime Trilogy?
For right now, I'm playing just Prime, but when I beat it, and I will be beating it very soon, I plan to play Prime 2 and Prime 3 right afterward. And then I'm not going to play Hunters between Prime 1 and Prime 2, even though that's like technically where it takes place, but like it's like spot in the chronology doesn't like really matter. So, and I'm going to play it afterwards. So I'm going to give it a little run through, maybe the campaign, and then maybe try and somehow play Wi-Fi, maybe play multiplayer against bots or something and call it a day after I play the first 3. And then if I can get my hands on Pinball, I will try to play that because I have no idea where my copy is. If I can find it, I'll play it that way. But yeah, I'm going to play all of Metroid Prime, the whole trilogy, the whole shebang, the whole package once I finish the first one.
Yeah, I got to get Pinball, actually. That's the only Metroid property that I've never played. And it actually looks pretty sweet for like
it's cool.
What it is.
It's no Pokemon Pinball, which are like the GOAT pinball games, like the Red Blue, or I'm sorry, Ruby Sapphire ones. So good. But yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, and it looks pretty cool. Like I saw like a little clip of it where you fight like Ridley, or you have like the Rundus thing. It looks cool for what it is. I just finished Corruption actually a couple days ago.
Oh, nice. How was it?
I
was it playing again recently?
It was good. I think that it had been a lot longer than I remembered since I played it, because I didn't remember like as much about it as I thought I did. Like, we did an episode way back when, I think it was what we wanted for Metroid Prime 4, and you had said something along the lines of like, it would be cool if they did more with the grapple beam. And to me, I was just like, oh, the grapple beam, that's kind of like an odd choice, but I just forgot how much you use the grapple beam in Metroid Prime 3, and like you use it for everything a lot. So yeah, no, it was good to replay that. I think that the Omega Ridley fight is pretty sweet, but I think that it's probably about where we ranked it in our ranking. Loved getting I love the locations in Prime 3. I love the command visor and stuff. I had a really good time with it. Some of the Wii stuff, pulling and pushing and twisting hasn't aged maybe necessarily as gracefully as it could, but I had a good time. I played it for about 13 hours, got 100% of the items, got the ending where we see our boy at the end going after Samus.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it got me pretty fired up to talk about Metroid Prime 3 sometime in the future here. And like, man, so next week we're gonna do Phendrana Drifts, and we're gonna do this mapping Metroid segment, which originally we were gonna do today, but we pushed it back. But man, playing Prime 3, I was like, I can't wait to do a mapping Metroid segment on the Valhalla, because that is just so badass of a place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the strong suits for the Metroid series in general, but the Metroid Prime trilogy absolutely have so many like iconic areas.
Oh.
The Artifact Temple, the Sanctuary Fortress, Valhalla, you have the Sky Town. So many different things, especially Prime 3 apps. I think all 3 games very evenly contributed to. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. I can't wait, and that's something we can jump into every single game too. We can take that map in Metroid, go into every single Metroid game, and eventually we'll have talked about the whole game of each Metroid game because we've gone to each area, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, like, the goal is that this show is going to last for years and years and years. So eventually, we'll have every area in Metroid mapped out.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And originally we were going to do that today, but we pushed it back next week because we got kind of an unexpected little bit of, not Metroid news, but a Metroid teaser this week. Speaking of Metroid Prime Pinball, actually, and spinoffs in the Metroid series, Nintendo decided that it would be a really cool idea to release a trailer for Paper Mario in the middle, not even the middle of the week, on a random Thursday morning. And first of all, Dak, let's talk about Paper Mario just for a quick sec. I think that this game, Paper Mario, the Origami King, looks sick. Like, it reminds me very much so of Thousand Year Door, which is like when I think Paper Mario was at its peak. I really loved the first two, this one looks really cool. I just thought that it was such a like a clever concept to use the origami. Like I loved everything that I saw in this trailer. And maybe the coolest thing is like it comes out in like 2 months, like not even very far away. What did you think about this?
Yeah, so I think this was part of that like summer of games thing that like Jeff Niley or whoever is doing that kind of like replacement for E3, like online, like monthly, game news and game reveal kind of thing. So I think it was part of that. I think that's why it kind of just like seemed to show up randomly on a Thursday. And
I don't think it was. I think
no,
it was just
okay,
a random
I could
shadow
have sworn
drop.
I saw a tweet that maybe they had done. Either way,
I could be yeah, I could
it's
be mistaken.
summertime and it's a game, so whatever. It comes out, yeah, and obviously the Paper Mario series has had a pretty iffy track record recently. And I'm someone who's a fan of the first three Paper Mario games, flat out. I even love Super Paper Mario. It's no Thousand Year Door, which is the goat, of course, but it's still a solid game. So I saw this. I love Paper Mario, and I was excited because if it's good, I'm super down for it. And I think the origami twist is really cool. So yeah, that was like really surprising just to see a new Paper Mario game kind of out of nowhere. And the
Yeah.
trailer was hype. I did not enjoy Color Splash or Sticker Star, and I know, yeah, there was like, I don't know, I don't know really what they were doing with Paper Mario, and this looks a little more engaging, and it didn't seem like it was just gonna be I didn't see any cards. Didn't seem like it was just gonna be platforming. There seemed like there was a battle system.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, and like there were some cool areas that Mario was traversing. There seemed some cool stuff he was doing in the overworld and in the world themselves and in the battles. I'm like, okay, you've got me. The trailer started with two big doors opening. I was like, okay, you got me there, Nintendo. Like, I'm excited. You're playing with my emotions a little bit. You're playing with my heart. So yeah, I'm on board for now. Of course, I'm still hesitant because of how Paper Mario has been recently. But yeah, I was pretty excited to see a new Paper Mario game announced kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, and like the last couple Paper Mario's, I feel like each one of them has had like this core gameplay gimmick that it hasn't really hit home for me. Like, cause I feel like Paper Mario didn't need like a gameplay gimmick. It just needed like it had a pretty good foundation with like the RPG system, and like it just needs fresh ideas, fresh writing, and like you can keep making them forever. I mean, you obviously want to innovate, but there's a difference between innovating and like turning your games into Kirby games, or each new game is like a completely different gimmick and there's no consistency at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this one looked really cool to me. Of course, the thing that got everybody talking was the end of the trailer where Paper Mario is running around with like what can only be described as a paper mache Samus Aran helmet on his head, and he's running back and forth doing his little shooting motions, and his little companion says like something along the lines of that's something that you don't see every day. This man, this excited me because I was just like, this is so random that there's this Metroid reference in this trailer, but like that looks really cool, and I started thinking about like naturally I'm just like, oh man, what would a Paper Metroid game look like? And actually, we're gonna get into that topic in just a little bit here, but it also excited me because there have been rumors floating around for months and months and months that a new 2D Metroid was in the works, or coming out imminently. And while it seems weird that this little Easter egg in a Paper Mario trailer should be get Metroid fans excited, Metroid fans are excited because the whole thing was there was a leak back in January, and basically it said in 2020 there's going to be a new Paper Mario game, a traditional RPG, and there's going to be a new 2D Metroid title, and that title will kind of follow Metroid Fusion. So maybe it'll be a remake of Metroid Fusion, maybe it'll be a sequel to Metroid Fusion, but like now that we actually have the official announcement of Paper Mario, it kind of gives a little bit of weight to that rumor.
I completely forgot about this. This is like a quote unquote, like air quotes, leak or rumor, right? Because I don't know this person's track
Mm-hmm.
record. There's really no evidence, right? Like the person just said this thing. Um, and I don't think like a new Paper Mario game was necessarily that like unlikely. I do think that they
Mm-hmm.
like the Paper Mario IP is something they've been using recently. It's Mario, right? They kind of use almost everything they can for Mario, for the most part. So I don't think it was like a hard call either. and it
Well, to build off that point too, like you've already had almost every major franchise have an entry on the Switch. It's like Paper
yeah,
Mario was one of the few left, and
exactly.
Metroid too
You know,
for that matter.
or it could also be in a situation of like the person knows information that is accurate, but then also adds something else that isn't accurate, or a little flavor to it. Like, oh, there's something I do know, the Paper Mario game, but also adding this. Either way, I did forget about that. So when you brought that up to me, I was like, I wasn't even thinking about that. The Metroid cameo didn't actually seem random to me at all, because if you think about it, the Mario RPG series has always had cameos from Nintendo, properties that aren't necessarily Mario, and in fact, from Super Mario RPG, Samus herself is sleeping in a bed somewhere, and you run up into her. So I saw that, I was like, oh, another, one of those Metroid references in a Mario RPG game. I actually didn't think that was random. I thought it was just cool and funny, and I was like, oh, that's something that probably has absolutely no meaning whatsoever, but it's just cool and a little nod to Metroid. And then you brought up that that rumor or whatever, and I'm like, okay, maybe that might have some kind of credence. Maybe it has some kind of, not credibility, but maybe it does put some weight to it. I don't really think it does, but it could. I just because I guess like maybe this guy could be telling the truth, and I don't think those two things are related, but that reminder of like, okay, this guy was talking about a Paper Mario game that did happen, so maybe a Metroid game could be happening. It's not necessarily unlikely. I'm someone who thought that they were gonna wait until Metroid Prime 4 for them to just do Metroid 5 or Metroid Fusion sequel. But maybe they won't do that. Maybe they will do the Metroid Fusion sequel first and then do Metroid Prime 4, which is something a lot of Metroid fans seem to think might happen. I wasn't one of them, but this could be you know swing me over to the other side, so to speak, right? Like I might be thinking maybe they are going to do this Metroid Fusion sequel for the Switch in 2D or 2.5D. Maybe this guy is right. And I don't think the Metroid reference in the trailer and the game really has anything to do with it. I think it's just a coincidence, but it is a funny coincidence. And as a Metroid fan, of course, always down for coincidences because that leads to a good game. Why not? And a paper mache Samus helmet is also something I'd also really like myself. And I'm glad that Mario gets
I
one
would
too.
really like to have
Yeah.
this on my shelf somewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that is interesting that happened. That was cool. I like that. Hey, I was looking for Ridley, a paper, because I even tweeted, I was like, hey, they got Samus's helmet. That's one step away. Let me get the paper Ridley in the game. How sick would that be if Mario just fights off against like paper Ridley for no reason? I'd be down for that.
So worth noting too here is that there looks like it's there's a paper mache Goomba and a paper mache Donkey Kong head in the same
Yes.
room. So it's not like specifically Metroid, but I do want to give a little bit of context to this leaker here. They go by the name of, I'm gonna try and say this. I think this is how it's said. Sabby.
Okay.
So Sabby basically leaked out and was pretty much 100% correct with all the E3 conferences last year, from Microsoft to Bethesda to Ubisoft to Square Enix. All of their tweets were correct, and so like pretty decent track record here. That being said, anytime I hear like, oh, I'm a leaker and I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen, like I take that with a grain of salt, because like you see it so often and you see it so much, and a bunch of people, like you said, like can kind of, you can make an educated guess, and if it happens you look really smart, and then like if it doesn't you can just kind of say, oh well, Nintendo changed your plans last minute. So like, I don't put a whole lot of credence into like rumors and leakers and stuff like that, but I guess I will say that this particular rumor that there is a 2D Metroid in the works that's coming out this year has about as much weight as any other rumor that I've ever heard, especially with the announcement of Paper Mario. So like I mean I think that's at least something where it's like, okay, well, like the first part of it is, consistent so far. And yeah, like it's kind of, maybe it's low-hanging fruit and it wasn't that hard to say like, okay, which Nintendo franchise hasn't been represented on the Switch so far? Paper Mario and Metroid. But, I mean, as far as rumors go and not putting too much weight into them, I think that Metroid fans have a decent reason to be cautiously optimistic with this rumor. So I'm feeling not too bad with this.
Yeah. Here's my thing is, it's here are the two sides of the sword for me. Number one, it's an easy guess because any Metroid fan or most Metroid fans tell you the Metroid game that we want, if it's not Metroid Prime 4, it's a sequel to Fusion. So, right, so, you're like, you could say they're making a new Metroid Fusion sequel every year, right? And that could possibly be correct, because what other game would they make? If they started making Metroid Zero, I'd be like, well, all right, I guess you got me. But I don't think that's the case. On the other side, though, is that when people usually do these leaks or whatever, rumors, and they make things up, they usually do it for attention, right? And if they're gonna make up like a game that's gonna be coming out, they're not gonna pick like Metroid, which isn't the most popular games. They're gonna come up with something a little more grand than that. Usually, when I hear a Metroid, like I very rarely hear Metroid rumors, right? Unless it's like the recycled every 6 months Metroid Prime trilogy for Switch thing. You kind of Metroid's not a game series that gets like too many rumors and stuff. Like when people started saying that just before he got announced at E3 that Ridley was going to be like, and all these leakers were saying, oh, Ridley's definitely going to be in Smash. I'm like, why would they lie about that? Because not many people really care about Metroid. At the end of the day, like if they really wanted all this attention, they would pick something that would get them more attention, not Metroid. So when I hear this, I'm like, would they really go through this trouble to like try to get popular or like try to get clout off of a game series that has like way more franchises that are way more popular than it? Maybe they are just telling the truth. Like who would pick Metroid to like make up something about, right? Wouldn't they make up something that might be more exciting to more people? That's what I always think about it. For a Metroid fan, it's definitely great for us because I'm excited. But for like most general
Yeah.
gaming fans, they probably might not care about Metroid. So for someone to come up with this leak, would they pick Metroid as that game series they're lying? I don't know if they would. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they are telling the truth, but just thinking about it that way, I'm like, maybe they are telling the
Yeah,
truth.
let me build off that because that's actually a really good point. Because like the reason that whenever I see a rumor, I just like kind of roll my eyes and I'm like, okay, is because of my involvement in the Zelda community, and like there's tons and tons and tons of rumors about Zelda. Like
Yeah.
the Oracle games are getting remade this year, or like the rumors that Link's Awakening was getting remade were there like 5 years before that ever actually happened.
Yeah.
Like lots of stuff like that. So like, and then you see people kind of take those rumors and kind of distort them in a way. So like that's why when I see stuff like that, I'm just like, ugh, here we go again. But yeah, I do like I think that I see your point. So like Metroid isn't going to get you a ton of notoriety, especially if you're wrong. So
Yeah.
why say that if you don't at least have a leg to stand on? But again, I feel like as of right now, the information that we got back in January about this leak, half of it has come true, and the precedent set by Paper Mario now, where you can announce a game and like it's out in like 2 months. That that doesn't it makes me a little bit more optimistic for Metroid as well because Nintendo. I think we can all agree that Nintendo normally would have probably had a direct by now where they would have showcased what games we're going to be playing from the summer and beyond. That's not happening, and it's not really anybody's fault. It's just it kind of is what it is. So like I think that it definitely is more plausible, especially in like this next little couple of months here, this next time period, to say like here's a game, it's coming out in like 2 months, and we're just gonna do it that way instead of our usual big buildup of like this is what we got coming 6 months 9 months down the road. So yeah, I feel pretty good about this,
Yeah.
at least for now.
Two things before we move on. Real quick, if anyone responds to what I said previously, with what about people leaking Ridley? He's in part of Metroid, and Metroid is not that popular, but people tried to leak Ridley to build off that clout because announcing Ridley in Smash would be a big deal. That's true because Ridley being in Smash would be a big deal, but like in and of itself, Metroid is not hugely popular. Second, that worries me. Like the whole they announce a game and then like 2 months later it's out, because then that kind of leads me to believe like what if they end up creating this or releasing this Metroid Fusion sequel, like whatever it is. Maybe it is the Metroid Fusion sequel, maybe it's not. But let's say it is this year, and they only like announce it 2 months beforehand, and there's like no build up, and then it's out. That could be kind of lame, Like for Paper Mario, it's kind of one thing. It's a fun, airy kind of game and lighthearted, and it doesn't. I don't think it needs that kind of build up. Really, you can release it kind of 2 months beforehand. I don't think anyone really needs a whole campaign or anything like that of advertising. But at the same time, for like a new Metroid sequel, that should I think have a little more weight to it. Should have a little more gravity to it. Should have a little more build up to it. And with Samus Returns, we know that the advertising really wasn't like crazy there. Like it got announced on like the back end of that E3, or just it wasn't even announced as part of the E3 Direct. It was like announced at the Treehouse right afterward, and then it came out a few months later, and it didn't sell as crazy as it probably could have if it had been marketed better or maybe even earlier. So as
Or put
Metroid,
on the Switch.
yeah, or on the Switch. So with this, this game probably will be on the Switch. But at the same time, I would like maybe not necessarily that it needs a year of build up, but I'm just worried that something that might work for Paper Mario might not necessarily be the best thing for Metroid or another game. And so, at the same time, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just getting it out there and it's on the Switch and you pump it out real quick and you hit the hype super hard and hopefully people jump on real quick is a good idea. Or however it pans out. Who's to say? That could be a better idea. I'm certainly no expert in that regard. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. If this could lead to an actual new Metroid game, that's a new continuation of the storyline on Switch this year. I am absolutely for it, and I hope this Paper Mario game is good too.
I mean, you're not wrong about that short window for advertising. And it's, we don't have a whole lot of reasons to be confident in Nintendo being able to market Metroid the way that it needs to be. But I guess that's a conversation that we can maybe circle back to if we do get a new Metroid announced. But I mean, I think that those fears are definitely justified. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I hope it does happen, and I hope that Paper Mario is awesome. I'm gonna grab it, and this is gonna be the first Paper Mario I've grabbed in like, God, over 10 years, almost 15 years now since whatever Super Paper Mario. So I'm pretty excited about that. But as I was kind of talking about earlier, we saw Paper Mario running around in this Samus helmet, and when I see cool things in other video games or movies or something like that, my brain kind of immediately goes to like, how would this apply to Metroid? Or how, how would this translate over? So I was all excited. I was like, man, I wonder what a Paper Metroid game would be. So we actually kind of doodled up a couple suggestions here about what a Paper Metroid game would look like. So we want you, the listening audience, to kind of hear our mini pitches here. And we want you to either buy or sell the game that we're kind of proposing here. So I guess, Dak, let's kind of get started here and talk about what could be in a potential Paper Metroid game.
Sure.
I actually love the idea. So I love the idea of the Paper or like that Mario RPG franchise period, just because like I really like being able to view a series in like a different light, and especially like the Paper Mario series. I feel like the humor always really hits home for me. Like it's just like it's so quirky and weird that like it's really it gets me. And so I feel like Metroid as a series that kind of, Metroid takes itself seriously and rightfully so, but I feel like there is a lot of room for Metroid to like kind of embrace like the little bit more slapstick or like the funnier aspects of Samus and all of her adventures and stuff like that. So like I would actually just love this on the principal level of like seeing Metroid, but funny. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing that I thought was really cool about this idea. And when you first proposed like the episode idea to me, I was still really on like the whole Fendrana thing, and I was like, oh yeah, Paper Metroid, that'd be cool, funny. But then you threw more of these ideas out. I was like, actually, this would be really cool. And you're right, Metroid does take itself seriously 100% of the time, almost to a fault sometimes. And I think that would make Paper Metroid so good because it could spend the whole time literally laughing at itself, like constantly joking about the tropes that show up, how serious it is, the stuff that was bad about Metroid that we all joke about, and they could go on and on about all these things that like maybe are not necessarily weak ports of Metroid, but certainly things that are talking points about Metroid. It can be self-referential, it can be meta, which is what the Paper Mario series is too. It has that comedy, has that kind of slapstick, sure. Also, if you've seen that by Terminal montage, I've sent you the video, but if any of you have seen that YouTube video, something about Super Metroid, that that cartoon that was kind of over the top about Metroid games, I could see that kind of tone and theme for Paper Metroid, where it's like over the top and tongue in cheek and self-referential, and plays with that the paper physics to kind of give it that silly kind of feel while applying the same things we love about Metroid and seeing the traditional elements of our game series in a different light. So yeah, I think this is a really cool idea, and I would love to see a series that does what we do as people, as fans of the games, as talk about itself, reference itself, make fun of itself, and do that with some cool paper physics. So I'm totally on board about this. I think it would be great, and I recommend that video too. Definitely check that out.
There's just so many gags that you could do in this game, like Samus, how can you turn yourself into a ball without breaking your... Like, I could just imagine every character being like, how can you do this? Or something, like making a running gag of that. I think that you could do, like, a running gag on Ridley and how many times he's come back from death. Like, just defies absolute logic that he is still alive and breathing. I think that would be a really fun gag. And, like, yeah, you could be meta about it. Like, actually, a cool example of what I think would work for this is, like, You ever see Into the Spider-Verse?
Oh yeah, of course.
So in like the opening intro or whatever, where like Peter's doing the whole Spider-Man 3 dance or whatever, and he's kind of poking fun at some of the lamer moments in the series.
Hmm.
Man, like poke fun at Little Bird or whatever, or poke fun at like some of the sillier things that happened in Other M. Like you can almost make that game a little bit better just by acknowledging that maybe it wasn't the best, or like, you know what I mean, just like having a little bit of fun with it, and presenting it retroactively in a different light. I think that'd be really cool. So a couple things that I thought would be funny is like whenever Samus rolls into a morph ball, she's like just a big paper ball instead. I just think that cinematic would be like so funny. Like her ship could be like this big paper airplane or whatever that's dyed yellow. I love this idea. I think that it could be like really really fun.
Oh yeah, that's like the first go to stuff. Like what do you replace, the common elements of these characters with. The paper elements, right? Samus turns into a paper ball. I was thinking Paper Kraid shoots like spit wads, right? Instead of shooting, the horns from his belly, he's shooting these big, thick, spit wads of paper. He's made up of maybe like surrogated like cardboard or something, or corrugated cardboard, and stuff like that. Maybe Paper or Mother Brain has like the rings of like hot glue, so you have like things stuck to your
I
body or
love
burns
that.
through your body. Phazon, maybe if they played with Phazon, because I could see Paper Metroid kind of taking from all the different Metroid games, right, and not necessarily.
Yeah, almost like a greatest
Yeah,
hits.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like maybe there's Phazon, maybe there's X Parasites, there's the baby, and it takes all the different stuff because it's kind of more of a, it's more of a parody and more of a you know an SNL almost of this kind of thing rather than actually being a canon entry, right? So I was thinking like maybe like Phazon could be like whiteout, Dark Samus shoots like whiteout on stuff and it erases it, or like siphons it, and that's what you get. Like if you get you absorb too much of the whiteout, you get like super corrupted or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like things like that. The screw attack being like a paper pinwheel. One of my favorites, which I know you like too, the grapple being like a long link of paper clips, or like the like staple gun for the grapple beam. So
Yeah, that's good
like
stuff.
pretending like Metroid's like kind of just made up of the stuff you kind of find on like your desk, not just like paper stuff too. I think that'd be cool if you went beyond like just like the paper, maybe add a little more arts and craftsy stuff too. But yeah, I like the idea of kind of just swapping out these common elements for like, oh, she's a paper ball, oh, they're spit wads, oh, it's whiteout, it's ink, it's this or it's that. It would be great for Metroid for sure, or that game.
Like even visually, like if you had a Paper Metroid like sucking the life out of something,
Mm-hmm.
like imagine how cool that would look. Like because these games have very bright and vibrant colors. Like the color would slowly fade from a character, then his lines could like his outlines could kind of drip up into the Metroid and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I just think that there's like an absolute ton of potential here. I mean, the big selling point of any Paper Mario game or hypothetical Paper Metroid game is like the story and making sure that the humor is on point, and making sure that the game itself is fun. So like assuming that all that is taken care of by our pals making this game, I think that this would be really cool. One thing that I kind of cooked up, is the idea of like who would Samus's partners be, because there's very like one of the big things about the Paper Mario games is like you have a different partner for every segment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like A Thousand Year Door in particular, you do separate chapters, and like you get a different partner that comes up and they have unique abilities, etc., etc. So kind of again going through Metroid's greatest hits, I was like, okay, well, like who are the friendly people in Metroid that would make good partners and like kind of be funny for Samus to have beside her in battle. Like first and foremost, I think that it would be cool if it stuck to its RPG roots. I think that you could have like suit points instead of flower points. Just call it SP or something like that.
Or Aeon, the Aeon
Samus.
energy maybe.
Yeah, hey, yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Samus could like have a couple different attacks that standard RPG attacks where like she could roll into a power ball and lay bombs, and how in Paper Mario you can with each button press you press A and you do another one and another one and another one. I was kind of thinking like you could do that for her bomb laying attack, and like every time you press A at the right time you can just lay another bomb or something like that. Obviously her beam could work the same way that Geno's worked from Super Mario RPG. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you
There
have
like lots of
yeah,
potential.
like you have like the Morph Ball jump and bombs would replace like his jump, you know, and then like his hammer or like would be replaced by the beams, right? So it would be
Yeah,
Samus's beams. Yeah, absolutely. And then like items could be, you know, maybe like I don't know. I'm trying to like I guess like her non-beam and bomb items. Yeah, you could just put those all into like one other group, and then you have the partner attacks too. Yeah, yeah, that would work. And I do agree it should stay with RPG. I would love the mix. I don't know why, and I hope maybe the new Paper Mario game does this, and it seems like it will. But you know, have like the mixture of like Super Paper Mario and Paper Mario, like the RPG stuff. Like, let me have like the platforming and action stuff outside the battles, but also give me some of the battles too. And on that point, I actually am excited to see how the Origami King does that because it seems like it has some different kind of battle system rather than just being a regular turn-based, you know, normal Paper Mario battle system. Because I'm down for that too, and I would like to see, you know, a unique battle system here as well. Like maybe it is turn-based, and I would like to see it kind of turn-based, but maybe it has. I'm not sure how they could mix it up. You know, I'm interested to see how Paper Mario does it because it seems to have some kind of like positioning you know, difference here. Like that's a factor in the battles. But yeah, I would like it to stick to a turn-based kind of thing here too. And I think yeah, you could easily, you know, change around our stuff. You have the bombs, you have your beams, you have all the other actions there, and then the partners. You have some really good partner ideas too here. I love these.
yeah. I actually think that if the Origami King's battle system is cool, let's just steal that entirely from the game and use it for Paper Metroid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was kind of thinking like who would I like to have as partners, and like I'll go in reverse order here. So I just finished playing Metroid Prime 3, as I said at the top of the show, and one of the things that I always kind of feel bad about whenever I play that game is like when you're in Skytown and you see the tin bots and like you just murder them. You melt them with your plasma beam and like later the Nova beam, and like these guys are just like the most hapless of hapless enemies ever. So like I was just like these guys have to be one of the characters that you team up with. Like you have to have a paper tin bot. Like they don't have a special attack necessarily. Maybe it's just like a pathetic laser beam shot, but they can kind of serve like the role that tells you, okay, this character has X amount of HP and blah blah blah. Kind of like I think it was Goombella in Thousand Year Door. So like you would jot down information and stuff about enemies and stuff, and I was thinking that like Tinbot could maybe fill that role in this game or whatever. Like you could fill out your logbook with all the different enemies, and you can figure out like which attacks they're resistant to, which ones are vulnerable to. Just a little bit of like a little bit of extra lore or whatever for them. And I thought that like maybe it's just because I literally just finished playing it, but I was like, this guy is so pathetic that I think that he's hilarious and would be like a perfect fit as a companion.
It's actually interesting you bring that up because that's one of the things I hated about Thousand Year Doors Goombella, that you like have to use her, and like, oh, I gotta scan this guy real quick and then swap them out because Goombella is essentially useless. I was thinking, even though I think Tinbot would be a good partner, but for the scanning thing or like the note taking, just bring Adam the AI back, you know, and just have Paper Adam AI in her head or something like that, right? And or in her suit or whatever it is, and have him scan stuff for us. You don't have to save that. But the Tinbot is a good partner idea. I actually didn't think about that at all. I was thinking, and you have all like normal like kind of enemies here. I was thinking more of the hunters were going to be good partners. You know, maybe just picking up all the different hunters from the different games. But I love that you went for like, you know, the common enemies, which is, you know, what Paper Mario does too. You know, it goes for the Boos, the Goombas, and all of that, the Koopas. A Tinbot is a great pick. That's like the underrated pick right there. You mentioned I have this here. I'm actually going to steal it from you. The Sheegoth. I think the Sheegoth is the
Yes.
cowardly Sheegoth is such a good idea. I love that.
Well, okay, so I was thinking of the hunters, right? Especially again, just finishing corruption, but these guys are almost like they're too badass almost to be partners. Like,
That's why they'd be
part of
good.
it,
You know?
yeah, but I feel like part of the charm of Paper Mario is like you meet all these enemies and stuff like that, and like, but these guys aren't enemies, but they look like them, and like you kind of have this eclectic cast of characters. Like you've got the Vivian, the ghost or whatever. You've got the baby Yoshi. You've just like
Yeah, you're right.
you've got this weird cast, and like it's not who you'd think of in a Mario game. And so like with Metroid, I was like, okay, with a few exceptions, let's go with people that you wouldn't think of in Metroid. So yeah, that was the next one, was like the cowardly Sheegoth, and I thought that it would be funny if you had like this hulking Sheegoth, but it's like it's afraid of everything that moves. And like this dude could be like his big attack could be like a big splash on the opponents. You hold the joystick back left and like you power it up, and like kind of when it reaches its crescendo, you release it, and if you release it at the right time, the big splash hits all the enemies and stuff like that. Something about the dichotomy between like this hulking Sheegoth and like him just being this like scaredy cat, I think is funny. Because again, when I was playing Metroid Prime, you see all these baby Sheegoth, and I'm like, again, I'm just like murdering them with my plasma beam, and I'm like, I kind of feel bad for these guys. Like, you know, I kind of like these Sheegoth. They didn't do anything wrong by me. So yeah, Sheegoth would be one that I think could be pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that one. One I was thinking of, I didn't write this down, but one I have written down elsewhere, and which is why I brought up, or one reason I brought up the X parasites earlier, is having one of the infected, or like the copy doctors, you know, from Fusion, like the zombie doctors. I was thinking maybe that could be a cool partner, like an infected zombie doctor that like kind of like ooh at them and like can squish down and a pool into like, or maybe turn into an X parasite and maybe attack like farther enemies on the other side that are like because like maybe there are like other ally enemies that are in the way, so you can attack like farther enemies like using like the X parasite movement or like the puddle movement, or maybe like it can infect or copy other enemies and stuff, you know, so you kind of have like a ditto on your team. But I always thought that'd be funny because I always thought those enemies were funny from Fusion. They were kind of just like these essentially cannon fodder, right? That never pose any threat, and they're just like, oh, I'm a zombie.
I actually think that it would be pretty funny to have just like a paper X on your team. Like imagine like Casper the Friendly X or something like that, where like he's a good guy and like all the rest of them are these vile parasites or something like that. I think that'd be good.
Just like bouncing around all over the place and like can't control where it goes. Yeah, I think the X would be great for a Paper Metroid game because they look cool. They have that like gooey look. I think they look cool in paper form. And, you know, they could, they're literally more malleable. Maybe they could do some more stuff with the paper stuff. But yeah, I thought an X-zombie doctor would be cool.
All right, so my next two are both from Super Metroid, and they're probably not... this is low-hanging fruit, but I think that it'd be cool if they were, like, companions anyways. Edikun, I thought would be really cool. You could have him basically just do a bunch of different jumping attacks, since he's the one that teaches you the wall jump. He's this cute little koala bear-looking thing, so, like, he already fits into the look of what I think like a Paper Metroid game would look like. And then Takora I thought would be cool as well. And like that one I thought it would be neat if like, its attack could just literally be like shine sparking, and like you could tap up A to like build it and then like release it, and then it could just run like side to side and damage all the enemies. So like it's a long range attacker. I love these two from Super Metroid, so these were two that I thought would be like a natural fit to accompany Samus on kind of an adventure, and like especially Edikun is already like kind of slapstick anyways. So like yeah, I thought that these guys would be a natural.
I don't know. I feel like those fit right in. I love those picks. Yeah, those are really good because those are already like they're Samus's partners already kind of, but they're also like they work perfect for a Paper Mario game. I like the Tinbot and the Sheegoth. And these two, as well as the X-Doctor. But your last one, I'm not going to spoil it, is really good. I was trying to think. There was one more I had written down, but I can't find where it was. But what do you think about having, like, a space pirate partner? Like, maybe she has, like, a space pirate who's gone rogue or doesn't care about the space pirate way or something. Or maybe they got injured or something.
I love that.
What do you think about that?
I love that. I actually can't believe I didn't think of that. That's fantastic. That's kind of the staple of Paper Mario 2 is like you have the enemies that kind of like defect from the other side and then they join your team and stuff like that. I always remembered Vivian in particular from Thousand Year Door.
That's what I was thinking of. You have someone who's kind of like gives you insight to the other side who's defected. I was thinking of trying to find a partner who reminded me of the baby Yoshi you get in Thousand Year Door, who's kind of like a mountain that kind of way. And I'm like, who would Samus like ride in like a Paper Metroid game? And I couldn't think of anything good, but I did think like a space pirate would be a funny addition too, and that was.
I think that would be like especially funny if the space pirate would like continually kind of mixed up like the space pirate. Like he still talks like a space pirate, and he's like, "We will conquer them all" or something. And Sam's like, "No, we're not conquer," something like that. Like I think there's a lot of
trying to break
room
those
for
bad
gold
habits.
In there.
Yeah, he's like a reforming space pirate or something. No, yeah, exactly. And again, that's one of the things that should Paper Metroid should play with those tropes of like what we normally expect, which is why like the cowardly Sheegoth works and the Tin Bot and all of that because it's opposite what we expect and it works out in a great way. You have a space pirate who's actually this bumbling guy trying to become good, but he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's constantly like has those bad space pirate habits. Like maybe he like in one mission steals something and I was like, oh my god, we got to put this back. Something like that, and he's like, oh no, I didn't know, or, something like that. But yeah, I love that too. That's a great idea. And I love your last
That
partner
yeah,
idea
that's
too, the most,
fantastic.
though.
Well, I mean, for the last partner, again, I feel like this is low hanging fruit, but like, man, your ultimate partner has got to be like the baby Metroid, right? Like that's the dream partner, and really has been Samus's partner in a lot of like actual Metroid games. So like being able to like fully control the baby Metroid, I feel like would be awesome. Its attacks again could be like you could literally suck the life out of someone every time that you press a button or a sequence of buttons. You just like zap more of that life juice out of them. I think that would be really fun. I don't know if I would want the baby Metroid to talk or not, though. What do you think about that? Do you think it's better off silent?
Well, I'm gonna say that even though what I just said, I still believe in. Stuff that like doing stuff that doesn't necessarily happen in Metroid would be cool. Yeah, the expected baby Metroid as a partner needs to happen, especially after Samus returns. Like Samus and baby Metroid are fighting Proteus Ridley at the same
Yes.
time. Like this, come on, this is hype. Should the baby Metroid talk? Yeah, why not? I was actually thinking, why not to have the baby Metroid be the baby Yoshi? Like maybe you name the baby Metroid or something, or yeah, it talks to
Okay.
you. Maybe
Okay.
you ride the baby Metroid when it gets really big, and you can ride it around or something like that. Samus just like holds on to the top of it. Um, yeah, I think the baby Metroid. Yeah, why not have it talk? Maybe it has like a really deep voice or something, some like adult voice. I don't know. Yeah, why not? That'd be fun. But at the same time, I could also see it like having no voice, but everyone like talks to it as if it does, or understands it somehow, and maybe some or like only
Right.
Samus understands it, and everyone else is like can't understand or doesn't even know it's talking. Something like that. Yeah, I could see that. Why not? Because if you don't have if it just acts like a Metroid, I feel like that's a wasted opportunity. You got to have it do something a little different. So yeah, I like that though, because that's a great like mechanic in game, having the Metroid floating around Samus out of it, out of battle and in battle. I think that'd be cool. Yeah, you got to do that.
Yeah, you sold me. If not talking, then at least everybody can understand it and kind of play off that. You could almost be like the R2D2 of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Paper
Yeah,
Metroid
yeah.
game. So like I actually like we had a bit of fun here talking about like what a potential Paper Metroid game would look like. I would be so down for this. I actually would love like Paper almost anything else. There was
Yeah,
a really cool
can't
video
go
that was
wrong.
making the waves a couple months ago. It was like Paper Zelda,
Mm.
and like that was really cool and got me hyped for that. But like I was kind of having some fun with this in the Metroid Database Discord the other day, and it really truly does seem like a lot of people in the Metroid fandom are like not super receptive to spin-offs. And like I wanted to talk about that really just to kind of close out our show here. And just I know that you've kind of given your opinion on spin-offs before and like where it's more of a timing thing, but for me, I was really excited and I was like, this would be so cool. And like, I guess I was just surprised that a lot of the people were just like, oh man, this is stupid. Like, let's stay away from spin-offs and just give us more Metroid. Because like, to me, like the more spin-offs you have, the more successful of a franchise you are. So it was interesting to see like resistance to this idea for me. But and I know that you have some thoughts on spin-offs and like they should take place and when they shouldn't. So I wanted your 2 cents on that,
Oh,
Dak.
I can understand that because I do to a certain extent I agree. Yeah, if you have a lot of spin-offs, I think it's not just spin-offs, but generally when you have more spin-offs, that just means there's more like material being created for the property. That's generally a good thing. But at the same time, if all those spin-offs are bad, then it's not a good thing. If everything you release for something or you release a lot of stuff and there's a big quantity but a lot of it's low quality, then even if you're creating and producing a lot, that might lower the value of the IP. And if these spin-offs come out, I can see some fans thinking it might lower the value of Metroid. Maybe like, okay, it's too silly, or we should be getting, we should have more games of higher quality, or what they expect to be the Metroid quality of or what should represent Metroid, because there aren't a lot of games, and when it has gone wrong, it's gone wrong pretty badly. So I can kind of understand the hesitation. At the same time, I think there are some people who are a little too elitist and they don't want their Metroid to change. This is how they want it, or they don't want it to be too silly. They don't want it to be too out of the ordinary. They want to stick to what they know. And at the end of the day, if a game's good, the game's good. Um, and I'm always down for more Metroid, but I won't want to repeat. Yes, I've said it before. I want more actual Metroid games. If we get those, I'm totally down with spin-offs. But a Paper Metroid game, I think, is something that would be really a good contrast, or just a game that isn't that serious for Metroid. It doesn't have to be stupid or silly, because I don't think Paper Mario is stupid or silly necessarily. It can be silly, I guess.
I think it's silly in a
silly
good
in a good
way.
way. Yeah, it's not like silly. It's ridiculous, but it's funny and it makes sense, and it's not like it doesn't like when you play Paper Mario, it's like, wow, this is like this is even too silly for Mario, like it's still kind of like within bounds. And I think that would be fine for Metroid too. At the end of the day, it's still a video game, and I think it would work even better for Metroid because Mario itself isn't very serious, right? Whereas Metroid, you have a lot of stuff you could really kind of make fun of and stuff. And I think at the end of the day, that's maybe where that's coming from. That hesitation is, do people want their game series being made fun of? Maybe it's a little easier to make fun of Mario because it's the big guy in town, right? Like Mario has so many games, it's so successful. If it has a game that makes fun of itself, who cares? It's earned the right to do that, and there are so many other games you can get into that show the great sides of Mario. Maybe some people don't want that game that kind of highlights the flaws of Metroid or jokes about it too much because they don't have too many good Metroid games or they haven't had a good Metroid game in a while. Again, I understand that. I don't know. I think people just kind of want to see, and they don't want change or they don't want something that's too different. But at the end of the day, I think that's where some of the best stuff gets created, and you sometimes don't know what you want until you get it. Not necessarily saying that everybody's wrong when they want a certain kind of game, but I think this would be fun. I think this would be cool, and I would be personally down for it. I love the Paper Mario games. I love Metroid. I think this would be really fun, and yeah, if you have a lot of, I think some additional Metroid spin-offs would be a good sign of more of a healthy franchise. So why not? That's my take on it.
I think that was like such a great comment you made about Mario being the big guy and like being able to kind of take those lumps a little
Yeah.
bit. Really, yeah, that was a great comment. And you know what? I absolutely I take nothing away from people that are just like, man, I don't want Paper Metroid. I want like
Yeah, of
I want
course.
Metroid 5. I want Metroid Prime 4 cuz I'm right there with you. And I think you've said before that like spin-offs are great when you have a consistent flow of content coming out for like your regular series. And I also agree with that too. Like we've talked a little bit before and touched on it briefly about how Federation Force would have been a whole different game if it was released, during the prime years instead of like all this like
Easily,
a decade after that
easily,
series is kind of
easily,
done.
without a doubt,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
So yeah, I do love the idea that maybe Metroid could venture out into some areas that it's not exactly comfortable in because I think you nailed it. Like you don't know what you want until you get it sometimes, and I feel like this would be really cool. I mean, not all the times, of course, but and at the end of the day, it if the game isn't good, nobody wants it, and that's the most important thing. But the premise goes a long way too. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. Like my imagination just went completely bonkers after watching this paper mache Samus helmet in the Origami King trailer. So I'm glad that I convinced you to talk about this, even though I know that you really wanted to talk about Findrana Drifts.
Well, I did, but no, I think you were right, and I think this is a good topic to talk about. And I love Paper Mario, but like I think it was more like should there be a Paper Metroid game? Well, yeah, I'm down for that. I think we both kind of like, yeah, I'm down for that. So when I first thought about it, I was like, well, what kind of discussion could we really have? Once you kind of outline some more ideas, like, okay, yeah, we can really kind of dig into how it would really kind of look. At the same time, though, I would like it if Metroid did go into kind of a very different kind of spin-off to maybe not do paper because Mario already does that. Maybe do something different, and that's still kind of very
Mm-hmm.
stylistic. Again, if we're talking Metroid spin-offs, though, your boy wants Metroid Prime Hunters 2. So if we're talking spin-offs, that will always win over Paper Metroid for me. If we're doing like a rank our most wanted Metroid spin-offs, it'll always be Metroid Prime Hunters 2. So, or a Metroid fighting game, but even then, would still prefer a Prime Hunters 2 over that. But I think Pepper Metroid would be cool. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree, and I'm interested to see what people think. But hopefully this news is. I really like to think about is that this rumor is possibly true. Maybe we are getting a Metroid, 2D Metroid coming out soon on the Switch. That'd be really cool. So, and maybe it's Paper Metroid. Maybe that's what it is.
God, that'd be awesome. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because I want to bring it full circle back to the start of our conversation about the alleged rumor and leak and 2D Metroid that's coming out. First of all, if you just had to guess, put on your guessing cap and put on your hypothetical cap, do you think that if we get a new 2D Metroid this year, that it is either a remake of Fusion or a sequel to Fusion? What do you think is more likely? I'm going to be honest and say that I think a remake of Fusion is the more likely road that Nintendo would take at this point.
No, it's hard because it's like they could do a Fusion remake, they could do a Super Metroid remake, they could do a sequel to Fusion, they could do a different. I really have no idea. I would like to think that they will do a sequel to Fusion. But if they're not doing a sequel to Fusion, I think they're going to do a Super Metroid remake before a Fusion remake. Even though I think they should do the Fusion.
You think so?
Even though I think they should do the Fusion remake first, I think they would do the Super Metroid remake first. Just because they're like, oh, well, it's Super Metroid, gotta do that, So I think Samus Returns was just Mercury kind of got that because that's a lot less daunting than remaking Super Metroid or even Metroid Fusion, right? Like Metroid 2, like anybody I think could have remade that game and done it justice. I think, I don't think it really they actually did more than that. They really added a lot to it. So I think that was kind of like their test, so to speak. Do I think that was like testing them to do another remake? Very possibly. I think okay, they did Samus Returns. Now Nintendo's like, okay, now you can do the Super Metroid remake. Now you can do the Fusion remake, whatever. I would like to think that it's gonna be the sequel. I don't know though, because it's so hard to tell. Like, do they value a sequel to Fusion as much as like a lot of Metroid fans do? I really have no idea because it doesn't seem like they do because they haven't continued the story in almost 2 decades. So it's hard for me to believe that like they have the same value for it as like I do or you do or someone else. At the same time, it's their IP. Also, I think a Super Metroid remake in general just seems like it's going to happen someday. So it could easily be that.
I think the opposite actually, because I think that like Super Metroid as a game is so well established. Like, think of every virtual console ever that Nintendo's had, and Super Metroid is right there on them. Like you can get Super Metroid like almost anywhere, and like the game, it's 25 years old, but like it holds up so beautifully still. Whereas like Fusion, as we talked about in the archives on the show, like there are some improvements that could be made, and I feel like just going back to the virtual console for a second, it's only available on the Wii U virtual console, and I mean nobody bought a Wii U, so like really a lot of people haven't had an opportunity to play that game since.
It's on the Switch.
Super Metroid, yeah, Super Metroid's on the Switch, but Fusion isn't.
Yeah,
so like,
right, yeah.
What I'm saying is like, if you wanted to play Super Metroid and you remade Super Metroid, there's probably a pocket of people that are just like, whatever, it's already on my Switch for free. I'm just gonna play it there. Whereas like Fusion, I feel like there's a big contingent of people that probably haven't played that game since 2002, and I feel like if you remake Fusion too, you kind of set people up more easily to get into Metroid 5.
I agree with that.
So I kind of feel like that might be the direction that they're gonna go.
That's a very good point. At the same time, though, I mean, they remade Ocarina of Time, which is like considered one of the best games ever made too. So I feel like they,
Right.
I could easily see them remaking They've remade Super Mario 64 how many times? Like they've re-released that. They remade it on the 3D on the DS. They re-released Ocarina of Time on the DS, or remastered all that. I think they could easily remaster Super Metroid. It's like in that same caliber of games. Like, yeah, it might be more accessible than Fusion, but I don't really think that might have anything to do with it. I think I could see them doing the Super Metroid remake just because I think they'll, from Nintendo's perspective, they probably want to do that more just because Super Metroid's a more popular game. It might be bigger news, but that's a good point. Yeah, maybe they do the Metroid Fusion remake because it leads right into the events of whatever hypothetical Metroid 5 would be. So yeah, that's why it's such a hard read, because there's so many different factors, and because Nintendo doesn't seem to play their cards at all in terms of Metroid, we really have no idea to know like what their intentions are or how they feel about it, because they do very little with the games, you know. And like, again, from our perspective, doing a Metroid Fusion remake would make a lot of sense, but like to them, do they really care that much? As you know, like about people really knowing going into Metroid 5 what like the events are. Maybe they just there's a recap in Metroid Prime 4 or something, and like which or you know I don't know. Maybe they just run it with Metroid 5. Maybe Metroid 5 isn't even a sequel to Fusion, just a completely new story, which would suck. So I don't know. I really wish we knew more of what their intentions were. As much as like, oh, they've been transparent a little bit with the development of Metroid Prime 4. I kind of wish they were more transparent in like a more macro sense. You know, like knowing the development like specifics is cool, but I really wish we knew more about like the actual like macro like vision of what they have for the franchise, you know, so we could kind of not even anticipate, but just kind of have a better idea of what they want to do, you know, so I could like talk about more of like, okay, yeah, maybe they do really want to have the sequel to Fusion, maybe that's a priority, this or that. I have no idea. So it's such a hard thing to read for them.
I think you'd find the Nintendo plan for the Metroid series, and it would just say like, yeah, it would say release a Metroid game eventually. Like, I think that's pretty much it. There's not much plan there. Okay, let's bring it home here, and I'm gonna ask you the $1 million question, Dak, and I want a yes or no answer. With all of the leaks, all of the rumors, all of the potential weight given to the January leak, do you believe that a 2D Metroid comes out in 2020? Or how about this? Instead of yes or no, give me a percent.
A percent?
Out of 100.
Nah,
I'll give you
a yes. I'll just give you a yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna put it out there. I want it to happen, so I'll put that energy out there. Yes, I think it's gonna happen.
I'm with you. I feel optimistic, and I've never ever put my faith in like a leak or a rumor before. I typically don't even read them, so like I'm probably just gonna get burned horrifically here. But I'm excited, and I want it to be true. I'm feeling like 80% yes. So I'm gonna say yes. I think that we are going to get a new 2D Metroid because Metroid Prime 4 is God knows how long away. I think that if it's not a 2D Metroid, it has to be the Prime Trilogy, or like it has to be something. Metroid is one of the last big franchises that Nintendo has not let loose on the Switch yet, right? Like something's gotta happen here. So I'm gonna say yes. I think we're getting a 2D Metroid. I think it could potentially be a remake of Metroid Fusion. That makes sense to me, but I mean, to be honest, I'll take anything.
Happen, okay, here's what's gonna happen. I'm calling it right now, and y'all can quote me on this. Okay, 2020 Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Switch, 2D Metroid on the Switch, Metroid Prime Hunters 2 on the Switch, baby.
Oh my god,
let's go, the full package, man. Let's do it. Come on.
Now, what in the history of Nintendo and the history of Metroid makes you think we're gonna get 3 Metroid games in 6 months?
Dude,
you're crazy.
Nothing, which is why
but I love it.
Happen,
I love
dude,
it.
And I don't. Nintendo just do it.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's free money. It's free. It's literally free money.
I'm with you. I hope that happens. I hope we get the 2D Metroid this year, and I hope that you guys listening thought that our Paper Metroid ideas rather were pretty cool. We want to hear what your Paper Metroid ideas are. Of course, hit us up over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod, and come and chat with us on the Metroid Database's Discord server. That is linked in the Podbean description. That's gonna do it for us for this week. Dak, this was a good time. I'm happy that we talked about this. We got a lot of mileage out of like one little teaser in a trailer, didn't we?
Yeah, I think it took us like a half hour to actually start talking about it. But yeah, dude, for sure, this is definitely a game that I would play, and it's certainly a fun topic. And but that being said, I am ready to jump into some Metroid Prime next week.
Absolutely. I'm really fired up to be talking about Phendrana Drifts next week. We promised it this week, but we called an audible and delayed it. Next week, we will get into the nitty-gritty of Phendrana Drifts. Until then, we want you to check us out over on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe to the Omega Metroid Podcast. Check us out over on Twitter as well, at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spiteri316. Dak is at TheRapture_. That's going to do it for us. And until next week, see you then, everybody.